All right, welcome everyone to another week of the Global Youth Leadership Momentum Sessions. This week, we're again honored to have another youth leader, one of only 17. And again, I don't need to explain to you how hard it is to become a youth leader, but you know that from an ambassador, you have to get invited back as an alumni, and from that small group of alumni, even again, you have to get invited back. So it's incredible. It's incredibly hard to come back as a youth leader. So this week we have Josh Glanville, and I'm just going to read a little bio for him. Since 2011, having attended GYLS for the first time, Josh has developed a foundation which has no solitary aim. The pure idea is to help as many people as possible in whatever way he can with the resources available. It started off with a small soccer team he set up at school and has grown into something spread across the whole of South and West London, where he lives. Josh is currently in his final year at school and aspiring to study business at university while achieving his dreams of becoming an internationally recognized and respected DJ and music producer. So that's awesome. Josh is honestly amazing, and he's going to be talking about conquering your fear and living with passion. If you're an ambassador or even an alumni and you want to come back to GYLS next year as a youth leader, you need to model this guy right here. So without further ado, here's Josh.
Hey, thanks Sergio, and thanks everyone who's watching because I feel so grateful to have this opportunity, and I'm going to talk about fear and conquering fear because I feel like, if you have fear in your life, you can't progress and to live with passion if there's something holding you back like fear, and so. I'm going to start with a video if I can find it. Um, okay. Okay.
After being cut from his high school basketball team, he went home, locked himself in his room, and cried. He wasn't able to speak until he was almost 4 years old, and his teachers said he would never amount to much. Was demoted from her job as a news anchor because she wasn't fit for television. Fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and having no original ideas. At age 11, he was cut from his team after being diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency, which made him smaller in stature than most kids his age. At 30 years old, he was left devastated and depressed after being unceremoniously removed from the company he started.
All right. So there's one thing that all of those people have in common, and one of those things is that they had to fail to get where they eventually achieved ultimate success. But each one of those people had the thing holding them back there was ultimately fear. And if you break it down, fear can stand for a few things. It depends which way you look at it. Fear could stand for fuck everything and run, or or the way I like to look at it, and the way you should look at it, the positive outlook, is false expectations appearing real, which could also translate into limiting belief, because ultimately fear is a limiting belief. And I'm going to start off by talking about something that's sort of one of the biggest fears out there. I mean, it's not really recognized as an official fear, but the fear of the unknown is something that we come across day to day. Most people will encounter it, and it's when you go into a situation you don't know what's coming next. For example, can you imagine when Steve Jobs, when he was taken out of the company that he already started, co-founded, where do you think he was going to go from there? He wouldn't have known at the time. And another example is Simon Cowell. He at one point in his career, he only had £5, which is about $10 to his name, and on plenty of interviews, he said, I didn't know where I was going to go from there. And look where he's ended up. So ultimately, conquering the fear of the unknown can lead to conquering anything. And so the fear of the unknown can come from the 6 human needs, which are love and connection, certainty, uncertainty, significance, contribution, and growth. And if you're lacking in particularly certainty and possibly love and connection as well, that can lead into this fear. For example, you could end up with this after a breakup or after an argument with your family, or certainty after losing your job or starting a new school. Because when you lose your job, unless you have a genuine backup plan already, you don't know where you're going to go next. If you get sacked or fired, you don't know what's going to happen next. And so at that point, you've got to ask yourself, it's something that's been put on the alumni shirts for the past couple of years at GYLS. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And whatever it is that you come up with, actually, you know what? I'd like to ask that to everyone. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And the answer that you come up with, whatever it is, that's what you need to go for. That's what you need to chase, and you don't let the fear of the unknown get in the way, because ultimately, once you have that set in your sights, that fear of the unknown becomes just a fear, because you know what you want now. So it's not unknown anymore. So, I mean, I'd like to hear what you guys have to say.
So I posted the question in the group. Again, like every week, there's a little bit of a lag, but we do have some people commenting. Ariana said, "Go, Josh," and Maria said that she's here. So that's awesome. And then she said, "Wow, this video is giving me goosebumps." Yeah, that's a powerful video. So yeah, she can continue on, and once we get some answers, I'll let you know.
Yeah, so following on from the 6 human needs, as human beings, we generally crave certainty and security. And without the certainty and security, this leads to fear. I mean, so for example, I mean, again, another question possibly, what do you fear? Because there are so many fears out there, like being afraid of spiders, but one of the biggest is being the fear of rejection. And again, you've got to ask yourself, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? But then when it comes to the actual fears, you've got to, again, ask yourself, what's the worst possible outcome that can come from this? What's the worst possible outcome that can come from this situation? And then you ask yourself, what's the best possible outcome that can come from this situation? And the best possible outcome, unless the worst possible outcome is death, which is highly unlikely with sort of the fear of rejection or common fears, unless it's death, then the best possible outcome will always outweigh the worst, and so you just go for it. I mean, if the worst possible outcome is less than the best, then what's holding you back from going for the best? Because the best is the bigger picture, the worst is smaller. And so it makes much more sense to go to the bigger picture. Do we have any responses?
Not just yet. I think they're in the zone listening to you. They're commenting, but I think they're behind. So I posted the two questions. What would you do if you could not fail? And also, what do you fear? So I'm just waiting for some answers, and we don't have any yet, but when we get some, once they catch up, I guess, I'll let you know.
Okay, sweet. So I was doing some research the other day, and the average American or average human being lives for 78.8 years, which is 690,000 hours, which sounds, I don't know, it depends how you look at it. It could sound like quite a lot, but then if you put in all the other factors, you spend on average 230,000 hours sleeping, 35,000 hours eating, 81,000 hours watching TV, and so on. And there's lots of other factors. And at the end of that, you're left with 300,000 hours in your lifetime. Now, that may seem a little sad, and it seems like it's quite short, but what I'm trying to say is that life is too short to be afraid. Life is too short to let fear hold you back. And so I think I'd like to do an exercise, but I'd like, if there's any answers about fears first, that would be helpful for the exercise.
Let me see. We might have some. I get the notification, and then the comment shows up after. So I think we might actually have some. So give me a second. Okay, well, we have an answer to the first question. That took a little while, 4 minutes. What would you do if you could not fail? Ariana said I would help as many people as possible, and I want to travel the world and learn about different cultures and bring peace to the world. And Maria said I would restart my company and stop procrastinating.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we got right now.
Sweet, okay. So actually, I'm going to tell my story. Basically, this past year has been really sort of up and down for me, and this is actually why I'm talking about the fear and the fear of the unknown. Basically, I started the year in a really sort of rough place. I'd just been going through some tough things at school and with some friends. And so, as some of you know, I'm really passionate about soccer. And
That's football. It's football.
and I've always sort of seen it as a dream of my own, not the M word, to play soccer professionally. And I was really set on doing that until earlier this year, when I picked up a really bad injury that put me out for the year. And so I got dropped from the team I was in because of this injury. And so that's sort of, because I'm now 18 and I was 17 at the time, that injury took away sort of the opportunity to play it professionally, to pursue it as a career. And so come the end of the year, I'd been so focused on the soccer that I'd failed my exams. My exams didn't go well. They were big exams in my second last year of school, so I think that's my junior year. And so from there, in the summer before GYLS, I didn't know where I was going to go, and I was entering into the fear of the unknown. Anyway, so I just thought to myself after GYLS, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? And so from that, I came up with two choices, which a lot of you helped me with as well. I had, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? So my dream would be, well, yes, to play soccer, but that was out of the question. So to travel for a year, or to go back to school, work as hard as I can, repeat the year, and see where that takes me. And so I thought, I put the pros and cons together, but they were pretty level. But ultimately, when you've got something you're set on, you you've got to just go for it. You've got to, if especially if there's two things and they're both level, sort of pros and cons, you just go for one. And you think again, what is the worst possible outcome and what is the best possible outcome? And so I'm currently back at school. I decided to go back to school, and I'm working as hard as I can. So I mean, that's an example of sort of overcoming the fear of the unknown. But also, there was a guy I met at UPW last year in London. Oh, this year in London, and he was on the crew with me, and he had lost three limbs. His one arm and two legs in Afghanistan, and fighting for England, fighting for his country. And he came back and he was saying, where do I go from here? Because he was jobless. He couldn't work in the army anymore. He couldn't go get a job because he was crippled. I mean, they know he was unemployable at the time. And so he said, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? And so he went, and he is now, since then, I think that was 2 years ago, since then he has become father of three, he's married, and he's a motivational speaker across the whole of the UK. And that was after having three of his limbs lost, fighting for his cause. And so he just went for it. He got back, and he didn't know what to do at first, but he set his mind, he let himself settle down, and he just went for it. Yeah. Is there anything? Are there any answers to the second question? Because
Yeah, we actually have a bunch. I was just waiting to get through your story, but people, I guess, caught up now. So we've got Nick Marino way back. What would he do if he couldn't fail? Becoming the greatest actor who ever lived by inspiring the entire planet through the creative stigma of cinema and theater. My biggest fear is rejection, especially with girls that I like. So maybe you can address that. Paris said her fear is not being enough. Maria said it's football, not soccer. Ariana said also becoming a famous singer, and her biggest fear is rejection and not being good enough. So we can see a pattern here. Paris again said if I couldn't fail, I was going out for singing competitions and trying to pursue a career in singing and music. And then Felix said, go on, Josh. We're prepping for your all-day lemonade stand charity event. So I'm actually out the door. We'll listen later. Great job, man. So that's awesome. Felix just hopped on for a second. So we've got a bunch of different fears. Fear of not being good enough, fear of rejection, especially with girls that he likes. And we've got a lot of people saying that they would do some amazing things if they knew they couldn't fail. So that's awesome.
yeah, I mean, I said it before, and it was just a sort of, this is on my personal experience, but it's clearly true that the fear of rejection is a big thing for people. And actually, I I would like to go through this exercise quickly, which can deal with any fear. I feel. I mean, I used to have a huge fear of rejection, especially like like Nick with girls that I'd like. But you know, I did this process after I learned it, and every time that I've been scared of something, every time I've been worried about something, I'd go through this process, and you know, it seems so small in comparison. So I'm gonna go through this. So to start with, basically get into the zone, just relax, take deep breaths, and if you feel more comfortable imagining yourself, basically you're going to need to imagine in your head, everything in your head. So if it helps to close your eyes, then close your eyes, but do whatever. So to start with, imagine yourself in first person going through this fear. It's right up next to you. It could be, if you're scared of spiders, it could be a giant spider. It needs to be big, expanded, maximum version of your fear. What scares you the most? What's your worst nightmare? Now feel that, and how does it feel? How does that fear? Let yourself embrace it. Let yourself feel the scared or whatever happens. And if it's the fear of rejection, it could be a bunch of girls laughing at you. It could be anything that's relevant to that fear. And just embrace it and realize how it makes you feel. Now, imagine yourself stepping out of this situation. What you're going to do is pretend you're sitting at home with your family, with your mum or dad or sister or whatever. You're sitting there and you're watching TV. Now, I don't know how many of you sort of watch TV regularly or a particular TV series. But for example, I used to watch Breaking Bad and The Walking Dead, and in those sort of TV series, you get so attached to those characters. And for example, I mean, I cried when stuff happened in Breaking Bad. No spoilers, but so you get super attached to the characters in a TV show. Now sit back and pretend in your mind you are watching a situation you fear, but it's on a TV screen. You're watching yourself on the TV screen being under scrutiny or whatever by this fear, and you're watching it and ask yourself, what does this mean? Why does this situation produce fear? And now, why does this make you fearful? Why do you let yourself be scared of this? Now what you need to do is you hit pause, press the pause button on the remote. So everything on the screen is now still. Nothing's moving. Now you're going to go up, and this is a special TV screen, I mean, because we're GYLS people, we don't play by the TV rules. You reach into the TV screen, you grab everyone in there, grab yourself, put yourself on the table. Okay, you've got yourself. Get the thing you fear, you grab it from the TV screen, you put it down. Okay. You get everything, however many people, if it's a bunch of girls, you're scared of rejection or whatever, you grab all of them, you put them down, imagine it. You take them out of the TV, they're tiny little things, tiny, because you took them out of the TV screen, they're not real. And you say to yourself, you talk to your character and you say, what is going on? If you carry on being fearful like this, how is this going to affect your life? How is this going to hold you back? How is it going to stop you from achieving everything you want to achieve in life? You are not going to achieve your fullest potential, which everyone knows you are capable of achieving. And you know what? I can't do this. You're fired. You sack all of the actors. You get rid of the fear. You pick it all up in one big hand. You just throw it in the bin. Get rid of it. Just burn it. Whatever. Now, what you're going to do is, like an audition process in acting, in drama, you're going to get a new character. You're going to make him yourself or her yourself. It's a big, strong character, independent, a strong character who can deal with anything. This character can deal with anything. And you put him down and you say, listen, I know you are strong. You are worth everything positive in this world. You're going to put this character in the TV screen. You're going to press play, and the fearful thing could still be there. There could still be girls laughing or whatever, but you're not afraid because you're strong. You're strong, and that is your choice ultimately. It is your choice whether you choose to be afraid of something or whether you choose to stand up strong against it. So now step back into the first person. You're watching yourself, the big, strong person that you now are, that you're limitless. Nothing can stop you because you're not afraid of anything. Now you're watching and the fear comes back up. The fearful scenario comes back up. That you've got to allow yourself to reject this information, this interpretation. Why do you let this hurt you? And you're not going to anymore because you're not going to let yourself be held back. It is your choice. And if you choose to be strong and get away from it and choose not to notice it, then you will not be afraid of it. And another example, that's the end of that really, but another example is, I don't know how many of you remember the exercise where you close your eyes and where you look around the room for 30 seconds or whatever, then you close your eyes and you look around the room and you try and notice everything that's sort of the color red, and then you close your eyes and someone will ask you, tell me everything in the room that's the color grey or green. And the likeliness of you not remembering the color green or grey or whatever the color is that you didn't look for is very likely. And this links into fear because ultimately you can choose what fear you pay attention to. What you pay attention to is what you're going to have to focus on eventually. And so if you focus, say, on the color red, then you're focusing on the positive in the room. But then when you close your eyes and you're asked to find the color grey, to remember, say anything that resembles the color grey, you won't be able to remember it, and that's what you need to do with fear. Just take no notice of the color grey. Focus on the bright color. Focus on the good color that will help you, and don't focus on the fear. Focus instead on the bright, happy, positive color. Yeah. So that's the exercise I was gonna go for, but give me a second. Share my screen for a second. I just oh no, wait, okay. So after that, from that, if something's bothering you, take the image and just make it smaller, because you have a 100% positive impact on this world if you choose to. you are in full control of your life. Now, what you've got to do is write down everything that makes you smile, write down everything that makes you laugh, has a positive influence on your life. You can do that on the Facebook group, but in the exercise, you put that into the scene, into the TV scene, instead of the fearful scene. And when you press play again, the screen will get, instead of just playing, it will get bigger and bigger and bigger, because you want to make the positive picture the big picture, and you want to make the negative as small as possible. And on top of this, I mean, self-confidence is super important, because, I mean, you need confidence in yourself before you can have confidence in anything or anyone else. And it's like love. I mean, you say you can't properly love anyone else unless you fully love yourself. And so that links to fear, because if you're not fully confident in yourself, you can't be fully confident in extinguishing that fear. You can't get rid of it. And so you can feel capable and positive about anything in life. It's better to walk, for example, it's better to walk into an interview and put your head up and say, I'm amazing. You know, I've got this job already. I'm outstanding. I'm the best person for this job. Instead of going, oh, I don't think I can do this. You know, you got a low physiology. I can't do this. You know, I think I want the job. I don't know. Instead of doing that, you go in full of confidence. You tell yourself, I've got this. And that's the same with every fear, really. If you look at every fear like a job interview, you walk in confident, head held high, and you can accomplish anything. What you've got to ask yourself is, what makes you really proud to be you? Think of all the good you've ever done, and even think of all the bad you've ever done. But the bad has got to be small, and you got to get the bad. You got to put it in your hand. You got to scrunch it all up. Pretend it's in like a snow globe. You get it. You scrunch it all up. Your hands are okay. Scrunch it up. Then you let it all out, and inside, instead of the bad, is a butterfly or a bird or whatever, and it flies away. Because that's what you've got to do with the negative. You've got to, and the fear, which is the negative, and the limiting beliefs, you've got to let them out of your grasp. You've got to let go of them and let them fly away. You've got to push them away and let them go. Now, when you've done this, feel all the positivity in your heart and let it out. Don't care what others think, because you make the decisions around here. You are the boss, ultimately, and you're the one whose life it is, who's going to be outstanding from this moment on. So just to finish off, I was watching this show yesterday, and there was this British celebrity who was saying that his father died, and once his father died, he didn't know where to go, because he'd always go climbing with his father, and his main passion was climbing and adventures and stuff like that. And so when his father died, he was a bit lost. But the way you look at it, and the way you can look at everything in life, everything you struggle with, is to depend on the fire inside. The fire is the passion inside you. We all have it in us. And sometimes in life, it may get covered up by dust. But the truth is, as humans, we're pushed. We push ourselves first and foremost, because we are the most important person in our lives. So we push ourselves. We are also pushed by our parents, our friends, our family, and we're strong because of this. You've got to keep on pushing yourself to get this fire uncovered, the dust uncovered. Don't let the fear get in the way of visiting and using that fire, but it's a given in each of us. that fire, the passion, the burning passion to do something. It's a given in each of us, and you've got to follow that, because passion is, as I said, it's like fire, and fear. If you look at fear like wood, fire will destroy wood, and so ultimately passion is bigger and more important than everything, and the fire will keep you stronger than you think, because, as I said, passion is so important, and all you got to do is just go for it. Just go for it, and that's it.
Awesome, Josh. That was amazing. You're an NLP master practitioner, buddy. So let's see if we have any questions. I know Maria said, thanks for not spoiling Breaking Bad.
I was so close.
So that's awesome. So guys, if you have any last minute questions, you can post them right now. Now is the time. I'm going to post that now. Where did you learn all that NLP? Because he doesn't really teach you NLP at UPW or anything. Like, what else have you, what other like training, or where did you learn all that? Because that was awesome, man.
Nowhere, just myself.
Just picked it up on the spot.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. So I'm gonna ask you your own questions. So what do you fear? What would you do if you could not fail, and what do you fear most? While we wait to get some more answers.
Although I fear it much less than I used to, I also fear rejection more than anything else. I mean, I can't really think of anything else that I fear. Rejection is always an issue, even though, I mean, you may overcome that fear one day, but ultimately, eventually, everyone will face rejection at some point in their life, and I guess I'm fearful of that. And if I couldn't fail, that's a question I've asked myself a lot this past year, but it's a tough one. If I couldn't fail, I would first of all, extend my foundation as much as I could to make a bigger difference across England and across the world. And also, I would play soccer, but yeah.
So Josh, Maria asked, what was your fear? I think you might have cut out, maybe?
Oh. My fear was... Oh, I don't remember. Oh, yeah, fear of rejection.
Oh, yeah, you said that. Okay. So Ariana has a question. It's kind of a little paragraph, but I'll try and read it out. With what you said about thinking about things like a job interview, I've noticed that I'll start out extremely confident and ready to go, but slowly that confidence in everything I had goes away, and then my fear creeps back. Although I push it away and say that it's not important and it's insignificant because it's not true, it's still there, and I feel like it'll never go away. Any help with this?
So
basically, what do you do when you start out confident, but you feel like your fear kind of creeps back and you can't really make it go away?
Well, I mean, it can creep back, but again, as I've said throughout this past half hour, 30 minutes, it's your decision what state you're in, how motivated you are to do something. So you can say, oh yeah, I'm super motivated to do this, super motivated to get this done, to do this interview or whatever it is you're doing. But when it comes to it, and if you let you're in charge of your levels of motivation and fear and stuff like that. And so if you let it drop, you've just got to do what you did, repeat the actions you did that you made you confident in the first place, to get you back up to that place.
So you just kind of cut out for me, but I don't know if you did for everyone else, so we're just going to pretend you didn't. Um, so we've got, where is it? 1 second. Oh, yeah. We have two more things. Maria said, what specific steps did you take to overcome rejection? And then after that, Emily said, I would like to know what makes you proud to be you. So that's awesome. So first, what specific steps did you take to overcome rejection?
To overcome rejection, I initially, after GYLS, I came out sort of brimming with confidence, as you do. And so I took that confidence, which in the past from GYLS, I've sort of, after a while, I've let it slip. But this time I took it and I used it in that exercise that I went through earlier. And so I pictured the thing that I've always, in the past few, sort of 3 years ago, I'd always struggled with sort of general rejection from friends and stuff like that. And it was always a big issue in my life. And so I just pictured myself sitting in a room, and there's my friends in the room, and they may be laughing at me, or I might try to make a joke, and they'll just sort of shut it down. And so that's really intimidating, and I think that's what a lot of people mean by the fear of rejection, as well as obviously things like jobs. But I took that scene, I put it in this little box or TV screen, and I threw it away. I let those feelings go, let that fear go, because it might not, how can you tell what's going to happen in the future? You can only tell what's going on sort of in the present. You can't look too far into the future, and that's what you're doing when you're fearing rejection. You've got to go in with confidence, and so you throw out the negative feelings, and you bring in this confident feeling that you can overcome this fear, particularly of rejection, when you're worried about sort of friends leaving you or whatever. And that's really how I overcame rejection.
Awesome. I actually have a pretty funny story. I'm going to switch it to me about rejection. And this was a long time ago, actually, like several years ago. But basically, we turned it into a game where I used to go to bars with a couple of my friends, and this was a long time ago. And we would basically see who could get rejected the most. And we would like keep track. And so we would go up to girls, and we would talk to them with nothing crazy. We would just try and like to get their number or whatever. And if we would get rejected, it would be a good thing, and we would laugh about it. And we would kind of keep track and see who would get rejected the most. And after a couple of times of that, getting rejected is a joke. You literally don't even care. You just say, move, who's next? And so eventually, the more you do that, the more you kind of figure out like why you get rejected, I guess, how it works, and you would get less and less rejected, and you would lose the fear of rejection, but it would happen less anyways. So I don't really recommend doing that. That's just an example that I used to do way back in the day. But it worked, because you basically make rejection this thing that you're afraid of and that's like all bad, and you turn it into a game that you can laugh at. Because really, what is rejection? Like, it doesn't even matter. So it doesn't really work for girls very much, because if you try and pick up guys at a bar, 100% of them are going to say yes, pretty much. So it might work for you, Nick, Marina, if you want to try it out. Go to a bar with a friend or two, and see if you can get like 30 rejections. I guarantee you can't. You're gonna eventually get some girls' numbers. So that's kind of a funny story from way back in the day. And so Josh, Emily said, "What makes you proud to be you?" And actually, Ariana said, "Thank you." So I guess she heard your whole thing. You cut out for me, but I guess it worked out for her. So what makes you proud to be you?
Um, that's a tough question. I'd say a lot, but in particular the fact that this wasn't something that I had in the past, but the fact that I'm confident now to do anything that I want. I feel like I can achieve anything, and I'm super excited for the future. And I know a lot of people at my school, for example, who just roll out of bed every day and they just live day to day like they have to, and they can't wait to leave school and stuff. But I'm super excited for life, and I'm confident about my life, and so I guess that makes me proud to be.
Awesome. Let me see. I don't think we have any more questions as of right now. Ariana said thanks. I think I already told you that. So I have another quick question for you. So we focused quite a bit on fear of rejection. We also know that pretty much all humans also have the fear of failure and the fear of not being enough, which was actually brought up here. So how might you deal with either of those two? The fear of failure or fear of not being enough?
Hmm. Um, well, I feel like when you break through your boards at GYLS, a lot of in my first year, my ambassador year, I had not being good enough and the fear of rejection on my board. And so I think not being good enough is it's honestly to do with confidence, completely to do with confidence, because if you're lacking in confidence, you won't feel good enough, or vice versa. Whereas if you are confident, then you will feel fully good enough in your skin, and that's why I said earlier that self confidence is super important, not only for the basic fears, but to be confident in yourself leads to um, feeling good enough. Yeah.
Awesome. So I actually have a little story. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Where would this be? Okay. I don't know how I can play this. 1 second. So basically, hold on. Let me switch. Find this. So for the longest time, I wanted to learn how to do a double backflip on a trampoline. I could single backflip, um, but the double just seemed really intense. And so I think this might be it. No, I can't even play it. Whatever, I'm not going to be able to show you guys the video. I think I might have it on my Instagram maybe or something. But so for the longest time, I wanted to learn how to double backflip. And that fear of landing straight on your head and snapping your neck is dying. So it's literally what's the worst can happen? You can die. So that's kind of the ultimate fear. But so I figured that you can mitigate that fear with being prepared enough. Obviously, if you've never done a single backflip and you go and try and do a double, yeah, the fear of falling on your head is increasingly like the percentage of that happening, the possibility becomes more. But if you go and watch the Olympics, the past Winter Olympics, they're doing like triple crazy backflips off huge jumps, and they're all landing it perfectly. And that fear might be in the back of their mind, but the confidence that they know they can do it perfectly first try is more. So one way to get rid of the fear of maybe rejection is being confident in going up to a girl and knowing what you're going to say and knowing your worth. And the fear of failure is, if you're afraid of failing anything, prepare for that thing enough that the fear of failing isn't even a thing because you're so confident in what you do. So I practiced backflips for months, like just single backflips going, like just being super confident and going over the top. And in my mind, I just visualized jumping extra high, flipping extra fast, and going over the second time, just clearing your head. And I did it in my mind so many times that the first time I ever tried it, I got around both times and just did it. So if I'd tried it like the first week of ever backflipping, that fear would have been very real. But eventually you can prepare yourself enough where that fear is outweighed by your confidence and your preparation in your ability to do what you're afraid you're going to fail to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my story on double backflips, and maybe I can find the video. It's back to you, Josh. I'm going to try and look for this video.
Well, I was going to say another way you can look at the sort of TV or the exercise earlier is sort of generally a glass globe, and it's big and scary to start with, but you can shrink it. And so, as you said, eventually the positive side will outweigh the negative. So after you can prepare yourself. So
yeah. So I actually found a different video, which was from, like, I learned double backflips on a trampoline. I eventually wanted to learn it on a snowboard. And so, let me see. I don't know if you can all see this. Hopefully you can. So I basically started out into that huge airbag, which is terrifying because although you're not going to land on the snow and land right on your head, you're going really fast, really high, and really far. And so that part right there is like ultimate fear right there of falling on your head. But as soon as you see the ground and you just get over that part, you're good, and then you land right on your feet on this bag. That was one of the most like terrifying things I've probably ever done. And eventually I'm going to do it onto snow and land it and ride away. But that fear, whoops, that fear, how do I turn this off? There we go. That fear of doing that was insane. And actually right here, I don't know if you can see, I've got my firewalking thing right here. The fear of walking on fire is intense. Skydiving right here, and you can actually see the picture right here. Jumping out of an airplane, like that fear, you can't really prepare yourself, really. Unless maybe you're going by yourself and you learn how to parachute or whatever, but I went with someone, so there isn't any preparing for that. You basically just look at your life and say, have I lived my life the way I've wanted to up until this point? If I die, will I be okay with the legacy I've left behind? If the answer is yeah and you're good, then go jump out of an airplane. That alone will totally annihilate any fear, because once you do that, anything that comes up, you just can't compare it to that. So you have no frame of reference from comparing what you're afraid of, this tiny little thing, versus jumping out of an airplane and really dying and like being on the complete edge of living and dying. So if you want to conquer your fear of anything, go jump out of an airplane. I'm telling you, anyone who's done it will tell you it's the most insane thing. Go back to you, Josh. Doesn't look like we have any more questions or comments here. I think you pretty much nailed it all. So if you guys have any last minute ones, now's the time. We'll give maybe a minute or two, so you can start wrapping up. Any final thoughts?
Well, I think the basic message that really, the most important message about conquering fear is that you are in control. I mean, I was thinking about this last week, that we as human beings, the fact that we can talk and think and just do everything we do is so incredible. and we are in control of whatever we want to do. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to overcome fear, then it's up to you, because if you want to get yourself into that state where you can overcome that your fear, then that's your choice. But if you're not up to it, if you're in a low state, you need to get yourself pumped. You need to get yourself back into that place that you want to be to overcome that fear.